Okay, I'm going to be reading in Paper Wishes, the chapter August. Now, if you remember, July ended when Father brought home a dog, and Manami didn't want anything to do with this new puppy because she didn't want it to replace Yujin. And so Kimi was really happy that she got to have the dog. August. The wind that blows sand so hard that it hurts my cheeks finally stops. But the sun grows hot and heavy and burns everything in the prison village: faces, necks, hands, plants. For several weeks there will be no classes. Workers will use the time to make new classrooms. The high school classes will continue to be in Block 7, but the elementary and junior high classes will be spread out in mini blocks. When school starts again, we will all still meet in the schoolyard in front of Block 7 for the pledge. There are also some other new buildings in the prison village. It is starting to look like a town, except for the wire fence. Workers have just finished building a hospital. A store opened. Mother can buy fabric and shoes. The store sells everything. Besides fabric and shoes, you can buy furniture and dishes and toys and tools. So it's kind of interesting. I'm thinking, when I think of prison, I think of a place that's really restricted. You're behind bars, you can't go anywhere, you don't have very much access to anything. But here actually they have stores and hospitals and schools and dining. They still can't leave though, and that's what makes it a prison, not being able to go out of those gates. Ron asks me to meet him at school. Miss Rosalie is leaving for the school vacation, and she would like to say goodbye to me. I would also like to say goodbye to Miss Rosalie, and I wish to give her a gift. I pull my drawings out from under my mattress and look through them. There are 3 pictures I like. The first is a drawing of the school during recess. The second is a drawing of Miss Rosalie reading a poem to the class. And the third is a drawing of me and Ron and Grandfather in Mother's garden. Because I cannot choose, I take them all. When I arrive, I see Miss Rosalie sitting on the steps outside the classroom. Ron stands in the doorway behind her, frowning. I wonder what has made Ron unhappy. Here's Manami, Ron says. I hand Rosalie the 3 drawings. She looks at them all quickly and then looks at the picture of her reading a poem for a long time. Miss Rosalie studies the drawing. Do I really do that with my hair? She asks. I nod. Yes, I think you do. You twirl your hair with your fingers when you read poetry to us. Then she pulls out the drawing of Mother's garden. I shall treasure this most of all, she says. I will look at it every day and think of Manami. Manami who loves her family, Manami who grows a garden, Manami who draws beautifully. I look down because I do not want Miss Rosalie to see my sorrow. I miss her. Miss Rosalie leans down until she can see my eyes. I am just visiting my aunt and uncle for a few weeks, she says. I will come back. Miss Rosalie says it like a promise, and I nod. I have a gift for you too, says Miss Rosalie. She goes inside the classroom and returns with a thick stack of paper and 4 pencils. I lift my eyes to see Miss Rosalie's face and am surprised to see tears on her cheeks. For the second time, Miss Rosalie wraps her arms around my shoulders. I will miss you, she whispers, but I will come back. Ron tells me to walk home without him. On my way, I see Kimi's dog lying in the shade in the front of their barracks. As I walk past the mess hall, I see another dog following a man. This dog is white, but it is large. When I see this new dog, my heart starts to beat faster. Why did this dog also come and not Yujin? I run the rest of the way home. When I burst through the door, Grandfather jumps from his chair and I drop my paper and pencils. What is wrong? He asks. My breath comes quickly after that run. I cover my eyes with my hands. Grandfather lifts me and sets me in his chair. Breathe, he says. When my breath is calm again, Grandfather says, tell me what happened. I open my mouth, but words do not come out. My eyes burn with tears and I close them. Grandfather places a pencil in my hand and sets a piece of paper on my lap. I must know what has upset you, little one, Grandfather says. Is it because your teacher is leaving? I shake my head no. I think about the Usuan drawings. I think about the promises I made. I wonder if these two dogs found my Usuan drawings by mistake and came to the prison village because of them. I open my eyes, but Grandfather is blurry. The room is blurry. When I write, even my letters are blurry. Dogs. I understand, Grandfather said. They make you miss Usuan more. He takes the paper and pencil from me and then sends me to my bed. No drawing, he says. Sleep. When I wake, it is nearly dark. I have slept for hours and missed dinner. Grandfather and Mother and Father and Ron gather around the small table, speaking in low voices. I sit up in my bed. Mother joins me, unbraiding my hair and brushing it out. The rhythm of the brushing almost makes me fall asleep again. She brings a wet cloth to clean my face and hands. It feels cool against my skin. I hold it to my forehead while she braids my hair. I'm sorry the dogs upset you today, she said. Come. I sit between Ron and Grandfather. Ron tells Mother that I went to school to say goodbye to Miss Rosalie. Miss Rosalie is fond of Manami, he says. Manami is a good student, Mother says. I am not surprised. Yes, says Father. Manami is a good girl. We are proud of her. Manami brought paper and pencils home, said Grandfather. They were a gift from Miss Rosalie, Ron says. I feel my cheeks heat up. This praise makes me feel happy and uncomfortable at the same time. Have you ever felt like that when somebody compliments you? Sometimes you feel so good inside, but you also feel slightly embarrassed. I think that's how she's feeling. Mother uncovers a bowl of rice and places it before me. She slices a cucumber and arranges it on the plate in the shape of ocean waves. She pours water from a teapot into a cup. The water is not hot, and it also is not cold, but the cup feels good in my hands. Solid. The cucumber is cool and sweet. The rice is filling. While I eat, Ron and Father talk. Ron wants Father to find a place for him on his building crew until school starts again. Father does not want Ron to work on the building crew. Father wants Ron to spend his time studying so he will not fall behind when he returns to college. When their talk is almost an argument, Mother interrupts. My garden is strong and healthy, she says. You brought good seeds, Father says. This desert sun is hard on the plants, Mother said. They would have died if not for Manami and Ron's help. Father again tells Ron to use this month to study, and before Ron can answer, Grandfather speaks. No arguments tonight, he says. Mother fills the silence that follows with a song. I love their family dynamics, how they just come together. They don't always agree, but they're always there to support each other, to love each other, to care for each other. With no school, the wild boys run loose. They do not study, they do not garden, they do not work, they huddle in shadows, they scowl, they smoke cigarettes. Why do you think Manami calls them the wild boys? What are they doing? Why do they bother? Grandfather says their fathers are working and cannot take them out on boats. Grandfather says their mothers are working and cannot watch over them. Grandfather says they are running wild. I think my father is working. I think my mother is working. I think I do not run wild. I love how she's comparing. You don't have to do that just because your parents are working. Ron buys a baseball bat, a baseball, and a glove with his salary. He makes a baseball diamond. He gets wood squares from Father for each base. It stays light past 8 p.m., so after dinner, Ron picks up up his bat and ball and glove. Baseball? Ron asks me. I look at the ground because I do not want to disappoint Ron, but I do not want to play ball with the Wild Boys. Maybe next time, he says. He tosses his ball in the air with one hand and catches it with the other while he walks to the baseball diamond. From the spot in Mother's garden where I squat to check for tomato bugs, I see one wild boy after another slink from the shadows to follow Ron. That is good, Grandfather says. I disagree. I do not like to see those wild boys with Ron. So I'm wondering if you can figure out, why does Grandfather say it's good that the wild boys are following Ron, and why does Manami think it's not good? What do you think? On the island, August is not hot the way it is in this prison village. Here there is time during the day that is so hot I cannot move. So hot that sweat films over my entire body. So dry that my lungs hurt to breathe. So bright that my eyes burn. It is during this time of day that Mother tells me to lie on my bed. If I am still, the heat is not as bad, and sometimes I can fall asleep. If I cannot be still, then I draw, and I forget about being hot. It is during this time of day that Grandfather tells me stories of his childhood. He wasn't born on the same island I was, but on a different one, Japan. He tells me stories about my grandmother. He tells me the story of a great wave taller than a building that destroyed an entire village when he was a boy. Do you know what those great waves are called? Tsunamis? We've had some tsunamis hit especially the Japan area, and really cause a lot of damage. It is also during this hottest month of the year that we light lanterns to honor and remember our ancestors. The celebration brings our whole family together. At home, we always sent our lanterns down a creek. They floated in a sparkly line. The first one was Mother's to honor Grandmother, then Grandfather to honor his parents, then Father to honor his parents, then Ron's, Keiko's, and mine. Ours honored our long-ago ancestors. We ate sweets, we danced, we drummed. I wore a beautiful kimono and carried a painted fan. This year, I wonder, where will we send our lanterns? There are no creeks to carry them away. As it gets closer to the time to light lanterns, Mother and Father stay out late to help prepare for the celebration. But one night, Father wakes me up and hands me a narrow package wrapped in bright, silky fabric. I think it must be pencils. I untie the knot and fold the fabric back. Father has made a fan for me. I trace my fingers along the smooth spokes of the fan. A red cord hangs from the base of the spokes, and when I open it, the paper changes from white to green to blue. Father has painted a boat and our island, the white wall of our house, my favorite rock. It makes me happy and sad at the same time, and I kiss Father's cheek. He pats my arm. Go to sleep now, Mother says. I wrap Father's fan in the bright fabric and put it under my bed. In the morning, I show Grandfather my fan. He inspects it as if he's never seen it before. You know, he says, your father spent many hours making this for you. I know. You see, he says, your father thinks of the island just like you. You understand, he says, your father loves you very much. I understood. We will make lanterns, Grandfather says, lanterns and a drum. Grandfather and I take a long walk to Father's work crew. There have been no newcomers for a week. This is good because there is no place to put newcomers anymore. Every barracks is filled. Since they have finished building barracks, Father and his crew have been working on building a barn and fences for cows, pigs, hogs, and crops for chickens that the government is sending us. Some of the animals have already arrived. I see men working in the pasture and 2 new dogs who are not Yuzhin. Grandfather sees them and squeezes my hand. When we get to Father's worksite, he leaves his crew to meet us. Father and Grandfather speak in low voices while I watch the crew build the barn's roof. The cow barn has only 3 walls. The chicken coop have 4 walls. I think I like the 3-wall barn better. The cows can come and go whenever they want. The chickens are stuck inside their coop until someone lets them out for the day. Grandfather hands me a bundle of wood pieces to take back to our room. He carries his own bundle along with 2 tools. And when we get home, Grandfather stacks the wood and lays the tools on the ground near the steps in front of our barracks. Wedge, he says. It is wide and flat on one end and narrow to a sharp line on the other. Knife, he says. It is as long as my forearm with handles sticking straight up on both ends. Grandfather sets a piece of wood on the ground and places the wedge on top. He taps the wedge with a hammer until the wood splits into 2 pieces, and then he holds a split piece of wood between his feet. With his hand around the handles of the knife, he slowly pulls the knife toward him, shaving off a strip of wood. He does this over and over until he has a stack of strips on the step door next to him. Grandfather cuts the strips into pieces about the same size as my pencil. Grandfather dips his finger into a small pot and smears sticky glue onto some of the wood strips, joining them to make the frame of a box. Then he glues 2 more strips on the bottom of the box to make an X, and he sets the frame aside and makes another. Bring paper, Grandfather says. From underneath my mattress, I get half of the stack of paper that Miss Rosalie gave me. Go ahead and paint, Grandfather says. With your paintings, the lanterns for our family will be the most beautiful paintings. I pick up the chicken feather paintbrush Grandfather has laid over the top of the bowl of black paint. I want the first painting for the first lantern to be for Grandmother. I dip the paintbrush into the paint and carefully paint a row of trees. I am not used to painting with chicken feathered paintbrushes, but after a few strokes, my painting becomes easier. And Grandfather watches me. As soon as I paint the first upward stroke of the tree's branches, he nods and goes back to his gluing. Grandfather knows that a plum tree is for Grandmother, like her plum trees on the island. When I finish, I set the paper aside so the paint can dry. I want my next lantern paper to be for Eugen. Grandfather watches me again. As soon as I paint the first round dark eye, he stands up and walks away. But I do not stop. I do not try to comfort Grandfather. This is something I know, something I have learned. It is not possible to comfort Grandfather about Eugen. I know this because I know that I cannot be comforted about Eugen. So I paint. I paint and I think. I do not understand why, if my drawings are being found by other dogs, Eugen cannot find one. But maybe this lantern will shine so bright that Eugen will see it and know that I miss him, and maybe he will come. Maybe. So I paint a lantern for Grandmother and a lantern for Eugen. I paint more pictures for our ancestors. I hear a clanging calling us to lunch, but I continue to paint. And Grandfather glues. He glues the painted papers into the frames. Together, we make lanterns. I am hungry when the last lantern is painted and glued. Grandfather and I walk into the mess hall. Mother is inside the kitchen. She and the other mothers and grandmothers have been working longer than usual for the last 3 days to make the special special treats. Trays of salty, sour rice balls, stacks of crunchy cookies, bowls of honey-covered nuts. Your daughter is hungry, Grandfather says. Is my father hungry too? Mother asks. Perhaps, Grandfather says. I will see what I can do, Mother says. Next time, my daughter should eat during mealtime. She will, he says. He winks at me, and we sit at the table and wait for Mother. Mother brings us a tray that is covered with a white, thin cloth. Grandfather carries the tray to our room, and when he removes the cloth, my stomach makes a happy growl. A steaming teapot, a bowl of rice, sliced cucumbers and melon, 4 of the crunchy cookies, and 2 salty sour rice balls. I lift the teapot, and as I begin to pour into Grandfather's cup, I almost drop it. Instead of just hot water, Mother has given us actual tea. I pour slowly, afraid to spill even the smallest drop. Ah, Grandfather says, lifting his eyes to his cup in his mouth. I hold my cup near my face, breathing in the leafy bark scent of the tea. I let the first sip of hot tea in my stomach for a second. I feel its bitter, dark taste on the back of my mouth. It is not green and sharp like the tea Mother used to keep on the island, but it is tea, and it is good. And when I swallow, the tea begins to wash away the dust coating my throat, and I sip again and again. This tea is a treat for a celebration, Grandfather says. Many of our neighbors worked together so we could save money to buy. When we were finished eating, I filled my cup again, and Grandfather raises his eyebrows. I pick up my cup and walk to the door, and Grandfather understands. Wear your hat, he says, putting it on my head. I hold the cup out in front of me, safe between my two hands. By the time I reach Father's work crew, the tea is no longer hot. Father does not see me, but another man notices me standing beneath Father's ladder and shouts to him. He climbs down the ladder and puts his arms around around my shoulders and leads me away from the work crew. I offer the cup to Father. He takes it and looks inside. He blinks many times before he can take a sip. When Father has finished his tea, he places the cup in the hand. And he places the cup in my hands. Thank you, he says. He pulls on my braid and then returns to work. During the long walk to Father's crew, I did not think about the hot, bright sun. I did not think about the sweat dripping down my back. I did not think about my tired legs. But now, walking back, I feel the hot, bright sun beating on my head and arms. I feel new rivers of sweat dripping down my back, and I am itchy where my dress sticks to my skin. And my legs are so tired that I can only lift one foot after the other by counting steps home. Grandfather waits for me in the slim line of shade in front of our barracks. He has a stack of wood pieces next to him. They are about the size of one of Miss Rosalie's books. Grandfather rubs the edge of one piece of wood smooth, shaping his drum. I sit on the step next to Grandfather, take off my hat, and wipe the sweat from my forehead. After I catch my breath, I go inside to pour another cup of tea. Grandfather puts my hat back on my head as I walk down the steps. On this walk, all I can think about is how sweaty I am and how hot the sun is, how tired my legs are. But I hold the cup of tea in front of my body, carefully hidden inside my hands. The walk to Block 7 is not long, and since Father wouldn't let him join his work crew, Ron found a job building things for the new classrooms. I find him making benches in the schoolyard. Ron stops working as soon as he sees me. He looks at my sweaty face. He takes the cup from my hand and pulls me under a shady spot. Sit, he says. Then he sips his tea. Hot tea is just what I need right now, he says. How did you know? I just knew. Father does not like me working, he says. He sips. But the extra money will be helpful. He sips. I cannot sit around until school starts, he said. I will study at night. He sips. One day we will leave this place, he says. He hands me his empty cup. Thank you, sister. You are a good listener. Ron's smile makes my heart swell inside of my chest. Let me read that again. Ron's smile makes my heart swell inside my chest. I run all the way home. Sitting on the top step next to Grandfather, I remember that the sun is hot and my legs are tired, and Grandfather sends me inside to rest. The first 2 nights of the celebration, the mess hall is crowded with our neighbors from Block 3. One table is covered with a red tablecloth. On top of the red cloth are bright flowers made from newspaper and folded fabrics. Lanterns are stacked on the floor lining the walls. Vegetables are cut into pretty shapes. Butterflies, flowers, and birds. We eat the vegetables and rice balls and melons and cookies, and when the sun goes down, we gather in the large open space next to Block 3. I can see around the camp that a few of the other barracks have dancing and drumming too. Grandfather brings the drums he made. It is a square block with round edges. His drum clacks when he hits it with a wooden stick. Others bring drums too. Some are homemade like Grandfather's, some have a metal side. that sound almost like a bell when they're hit. Some are large and round and covered with leather. People dance and drum and laugh, and I watch until Grandfather says it's time to go home for bed. But the third night, the final night when we light our lanterns, starts off more seriously. Mother comes home from work early and takes me to the women's showers. Father and Grandfather and Ron go to the men's showers. Mother dresses me in a kimono of green silk embroidered with pink flowers that she has packed at the bottom of her suitcase. She dresses in her own kimono. It is cream silk embroidered with pink and brown flames. Mother combs my hair, fastening it at the back of my neck, and then she pulls her own hair back. Father and Grandfather and Ron do not waste silk robes. They wear their best suits, even though it is so hot. So even though it's hot, they're putting on all those layers of suits. Mother motions for me to sit on the floor beside Ron. She sits on the floor between Father and Grandfather. We face our family altar. A framed photo of Grandmother is joined by carved fruit and paper flowers. A glass jar filled halfway with sand holds a candle, the flame shining against the glass jar. I love that imagery because you can really picture everything she can see. I think of Grandmother. I never met the other ancestors, but Grandmother was quiet and strong. She made the softest, salty, sour rice balls. She drew pictures for me in the sand, pictures of flowers decorated with rocks and shells, pictures of sea lions and boats and my name. Grandmother's hands smelled like cucumbers and herbs. Her smile was warm. I wonder if Grandmother's spirit knows we are in this prison village and not on the island. When it is time to stand up, I take a deep breath. The smell of cucumbers fills my nose. We eat at the mess hall and then go outside to the open space for more dancing and drumming. Kimi runs up to find me and grabs my hand. "Dance with me," she says. She spins us in a circle. "Dance with me," she says. She spins us in a circle and we dance until she asks, "Do you want to get some cookies?" We go to the mess hall with its doors wide open and tables covered with food. I pick up a rice ball and Kimi picks up 3 crunchy cookies. A grandmother brings a pot of fresh tea from the kitchen, and I am too hot from dancing and running to drink tea. Kimi and I both drink water from our cups after we finish eating, and then we go back outside. There is a group of girls giggling and dancing, and Kimi pulls me toward them. But I do not want to join those girls. Sometimes those girls look at me like I am strange. I see Grandfather setting our lanterns on the steps leading to the barracks, and I almost run to join him. When the sky is completely black, Mother lights a short candle. She uses it to melt wax from the bottom of another candle, letting the candle drip onto the middle of the cross that covers the bottom of the lantern for Yuzhin. Mother sticks the candle into the pool of hot wax and hands it to me. Next, she prepares Ron's lantern, and Father's lantern, and Grandfather's lantern. And finally, she fills her own. We take our lanterns to join the other families in the open space where candlelit lanterns are set there and are there on the ground. I raise my lantern high over my head. For many minutes, I watch Yuzhin's dark eyes look over my head. For many minutes, I watch Yuzhin's dark eyes look down at me. Then I place the lantern on the ground with everyone else's, and I think maybe Yuzhin will see. And from far away, maybe he will see the flickering lights. Maybe he will know that I am thinking of him. Then someone starts a steady drum beat. It is deeper than the clack of the drums Grandfather made. A rush of wind makes the cackle flicker and spitter. My heart drops. The flame from Yuzhin's candle, his lantern, is gone. All right, so that is the end of the chapter August. And there'll be some questions, some discussion questions for you to consider, please. I'll write those answers down and bring them to our next meeting on Monday. Thank you.